How would you describe the LG7 era in 3 words? That is really hard. Dark, poetry, hard. I definitely didn't adhere to any one genre, but the beats are all really hard. So that was sort of the through line, is like sonically the album is like pretty hard hitting.
Yeah, I totally agree. Mayhem is an appropriate title for Lady Gaga's latest album. It really is chaotic and crazy good. I am so glad she didn't drop this album last year with everyone else. Not that it would have gotten lost in the sauce, but I just wouldn't have been able to get to it, which would have been a tragedy. Besides, she wouldn't have been able to release this last year anyway, what with The Joker coming out and the release of the accompanying album, Harley Quinn. This album is exactly what I needed. This is what the Little Monsters needed, what with the chaos of this year so far, and I would argue, based on what Gaga has said in some recent interviews, this is exactly what she, Mother Monster, needed. What's up, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Yaira, better known as simply Yaya. I am proudly African from Cameroon, born and bred. I worked for Disney for the better half of my young adult life, and more recently, Whole Foods. I'm always working on leveling and glowing up, and I have a Master of Science in Journalism, which informs how I view and discuss some aspects of pop culture on this channel. I did mention in the intro that Gaga is so back. Back from where, you may ask? From experimenting with other genres of music, like jazz, collaborating with Tony Bennett, which, if we are honest, elevated her career because now everyone could see clearly that she had real talent and wasn't just a flash in a pan relying on costumes. She did the country thing with Million Reasons. She took up acting in American Horror Stories, A Star is Born, for which she was awarded an Oscar and a Golden Globe for Best Original Song, House of Gucci, and more recently, Joker Folie à Deux, which wasn't well received by fans of the first one, but I liked it. She also launched her own line of makeup, Haus Labs, and now she's back to her roots, so to speak, or what she was originally known for, even though it's not her entire identity. I mean, she's a theater kid. Try as you might, you can't put her in a box. Before discussing Mayhem, first, the Fame, because Mayhem is being compared to The Fame, Fame Monster, and Born This Way, her first 3 studio albums, her quote-unquote dark era. Usually when that sort of comparison happens, the one or ones that came before are always hailed better. Not in this case. The Lady Gaga of the early 2000s was something quite like we haven't seen since Michael Jackson. Well, certainly not in my lifetime, and I'm not just saying this because I am a fan. My fascination with Gaga was the fact that she was always wearing sunglasses and this beautiful but crazy outfits and rarely did press. And when she did do press, I got the sense that she didn't really want to do it, didn't trust the interviewer, or perhaps didn't take the interview seriously. It was very much giving Macy Gray from back in the day. However, I also got the sense that despite all of this, Gaga felt like she needed to do these interviews, maybe because the record label wanted her to, but also because she loved to perform and loved the music, and if talking to some nosy reporter meant she got to do what she loved, then she did what she had to. By the way, her distrust of the interviewers, from my observation, seemed to be with major networks, not necessarily podcasters. I remember someone had asked her if she ever wore simple, regular outfits like just a t-shirt, and she was like, never, Viva la Glam, or something like that. I'll see if I can find that clip.
Please tell me there is at least some time where you just blob around at home in a t-shirt and jeans.
I don't do that. I'm Viva Glam.
I got a chuckle out of that because of course she wears regular clothes to sleep, at least. But then again, I didn't know that for sure. Some people spray perfume before bed, so it was the mystery of it all that drew me in initially. And next, it was the anticipation of what she would do or wear next. How would she outdo that paparazzi performance? Oh, she'll wear a meat dress. How would she outdo that? Oh, she'll dress like and embody the persona of a man. Joe, I believe his name was. She had all the pop girlies fall in line, and now all of them started to try to do the edgy thing. I watched a documentary in which someone had said the crazy outfits, aside from Gaga wanting to showcase her sister's creation, because her sister made some of her outfits, if I recall correctly, the outfits was also a way for Gaga to control the press, in a sense. In other words, if the public was focused on what she'll wear next, they would be less likely to pry into her personal life.
She does all these things, and it's all obviously it's very, very planned, and it's meticulously planned to gain a kind of response, and she's just so clever in that. Another thing which makes her different, I think, as well from other pop acts at the moment is she has this group of advisors around her, stylists and costume makers and so on, who are people who she's been friends with for a long time, and so she has the benefit, I guess, of having people who knew her before, who can tell her, bring her down to earth, no, that doesn't work, no, that looks stupid, no, that's what everybody else is doing, because she needs to keep pushing this innovative edge, and that's what she wants. She wants to be different, she wants to stand out.
And it was effective for the most part. And then came the rumors of her having a penis, which she sort of addressed in an interview, but not really.
That rumor that you had a male appendage, that you were a hermaphrodite, and you joked about it on the stage last night.
Maybe I do.
But it's interesting.
Would it be so terrible?
But it's interesting. A lot of artists would immediately put out some sort of a statement saying this is absolutely not true. You have fun with it.
Why the hell am I going to waste my time and give a press release about whether or not I have a penis? My fans don't care, and neither do I.
And then again, in the music video for Telephone.
I told you she didn't have it. Too bad.
I mean, Gaga was a spectacle, and just when she had started to cook, she turned off the oven and went in a completely different direction. And in hindsight, it was probably for the best. Fans can be so fickle, and they probably would have gotten bored had she kept doing the same albums over and over. Gaga's return to the dark arts this year couldn't have been more welcome. With nostalgia trending, my generation has been craving music and moments from the 2010s and 2000s. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Gaga of the 2010s was definitely a moment. The Gaga of the 2020s, well, the name of the album says it all, and it has lived up to its name, causing quite a stir in the best way. At the risk of sounding repetitive, I won't go through this album track by track because I think every single track is perfection. Every single track. Doesn't mean I like every single one. It just means I am acknowledging the intricacies and dynamism within the production. And we know Gaga doesn't play about her production.
So I like how hyped you get about production, like the excitement that you express over the spicy synths on Disease. Besides your own vocal performance and songwriting, what are the elements of production or sound engineering that you find yourself obsessing over most while making an album?
I feel like when I'm making a record, it's about like figuring out how I'm going to hone in the sound from song to song to make the album feel holistic. And it's about like choosing the analog synths. It's about figuring out what guitars we're going to use. It's about figuring out what the tone is of the piano on the record. But always at the end of producing an album, I kind of revisit every single song to just like completely hone in my vision for how it should sound. How do I know when a song is finished? Well, I definitely feel like, I have to go through everything. Like we as a group like went through every single sound on every single song. With this song, like we just went through everything. And you listen, you A/B, how does it sound if you take the guitar out here? How does it sound if you put more distortion on it? How does it sound if you compress it differently? What do we like the side chain? Do we take the side chain off? Like you hear when it sounds right. And I know that that's like not a great answer, but that's like so much of the truth of like how I make music is it's a feeling.
By the way, that interview of First We Feast was such a good one. It was so much fun to watch. It was about the craft, but we got to see a different side of Gaga. Anyway, back to Mayhem. I'll just discuss some standouts from the album, beginning with Perfect Celebrity. That intro alone just makes me think of the word slither and the vampire Lestat from The Queen of the Damned. It's very much giving if the intro of Charlie XCX's Back to Back and the intro of Dua Lipa's Genesis had a baby. The song equally reminds me of Sky Riley's Death of Me in Smile 2. And in fact, Naomi Scott, who played Sky, had mentioned somewhere that her music inspo for the character Sky was Lady Gaga, so it makes sense.
Perfect. Well, Sky is obviously a global sensational pop singer in the film. And if you could embody her for just a minute, who do you think would be like her top 3 singers that have inspired her the most?
Oh, inspired Sky?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good question. I think we've got to go with Gaga.
Yes.
I mean, there's some, and she's just, what an incredible performer. I mean, and by the way, not to say that this guy in the movie is anywhere close to some of our icons. I'm just saying there's probably inspiration.
Perfect Celebrity is the sister song of Paparazzi from LG1, The Fame. In that, she's addressing her love-hate relationship with Fame. She loves the fans, the music, the performance of it all, but the invasive questions, assumptions, and heckling is never fun. Garden of Eden. It's Charlie XCX coded, and the sister song of Just Dance, again from LG1. It also reminds me of Supermassive Black Hole, which was the song featured in Twilight when they were playing baseball. How Bad Do You Want Me is Taylor coded. I had to pause a couple of times like, hold up, this is giving strong Taylor vibes. It didn't say the song was featuring Taylor Swift, but some parts of the song sound like her. Something about the beginning of Shadow of a Man reminds me of Ain't No Mountain Higher. But the way she's singing it sounds like Telephone. Abracadabra is a dance number, bar none. Even without the video, it's an obvious dance number, so it reminds me of a combo of Born This Way and Judas, except more ferocious. The music video, however, feels like a nod to Alejandro, something about that red latex. Or the concept of people dancing under a watchful eye. Although Gaga has said that some ideas for the Bad Romance video, which didn't actualize back then, she did use for the Abracadabra video.
When I made the music video for Bad Romance, originally it was going to be much more dark. And then 24 hours before we shot the video, my director Francis Lawrence said he wanted to shoot it in a white box. And I trusted him because he's so amazing. I learned the choreography for Bad Romance at midnight the night before we shot the video. Alexander McQueen was so kind to send his entire collection to me after it debuted in Paris. That show was called Plato's Atlantis. One of my favorite shows of all time. I like that we shot Bad Romance in a white box now. But I had some visions for that video that stayed with me for over 15 years. And I brought them to life also in the Abracadabra video.
Some parts of the video are also reminiscent of Paparazzi, the part where she's using crutches. Also, I would say Gaga's cheat code, if you will, to a hit song is repetition and stuttering particular words. I mean, repetition makes you remember. Think nursery rhymes. Die with a Smile featuring Bruno Mars. The duet we never knew we needed. Two brilliant artists. I had briefly reacted to the music video back when it came out last summer, but I was wrong in my analysis, if you want to call it that. The song was about her love and respect for her fiancé and most likely New York. But I think the music video was the perfect way to also begin promoting Joker Folie à Deux, and more specifically the character she played, which made the song the perfect first single off the album, as the movie was due to come out a few months after the release of the video. And from then on through the release of the movie, Gaga was wearing a lot of blue and red makeup or blue and or red outfits for interviews or on the red carpet. Brilliant marketing, that is. Had me thinking the song was off of the other album, Harley Quinn, which was for the movie. By the way, I'm not quite sure why the movie had a French title when the setting is in New York, Gotham. So why the colors blue and red for the video? Well, it was 2 of the 4 colors of the stage curtain at the Marie Franklin show where Joker became Joker, I guess, in the first movie. Those colors made an appearance again in Joker Folie à Deux with those umbrellas in this scene. Beautiful shot, by the way. And of course, the clown makeup that both her character and that of Joaquin Phoenix wear is blue and red. Disease, that bass is insane. The kick of the song reminds me of that of Heavy Metal Lover.
Snare. The claps. This is where it starts to get really interesting. And then there's the drum kit. But it starts to really come alive when you hear the bass.
Which I think was inspired by Queen's Radio Gaga, which is also how Lady Gaga got her name. But the bigness of Disease is akin to Marry the Night. Gaga had this to say about Marry the Night way back in the day.
Fernando Garibay, who is the musical director on the album, one of my favorite things about him is that he collaborates. He's just so free. You know, we've been working together for years, so I'm so excited. I feel like, you and I have yet to have our big hit record. We've never conceived. They kept saying to him, I don't want to do anything I've done before. I don't want to sound like anything I've done before. I don't want to feel like anything I've done before. I want to be new. And I heard, down, 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 down. There's these church bells. He goes, your show is a religion. So your fans are a cult. Down. That was this epic music, just so big, and I started to cry. He said, what's wrong? And I said, I can't believe you hear me so big. So I sat down and I'm gonna marry the night, who won't give up on my life. Just right away, just like, started singing. I'm gonna marry the dark. Just like went right in.
The intro to that song gives me chills till this day. Sometimes I'll just cut the song on just to listen to the intro. Epic shit. And here's what she said recently in a Rolling Stone interview about Disease.
And it's not what I wanted. I wanted something that was big and putting Queen style background vocals and these harder hitting records. That's definitely something that is a bit of my style. And this is not the only song on the album that's like that. There's one I'm thinking of in particular that I'm very excited for the fans to hear. It was the very first song we wrote for this album, and it's hard hitting beats and those big sweeping Queen vocals and some Bowie guitars. And I guess in a way that's kind of me. You pull from things that you love.
I'm very into watching behind the scenes of the making of a hit. And if you are into that, I'm sure you've seen it already. But if you happen to have missed it, the link to it is below. Also, one thing I only now just noticed with the video is she had a snippet of Zombie Boy playing in this part. I wonder if that's the next single. And the person in the black, Shadow Gaga, quote unquote, was also sitting in the corner here watching her, patiently waiting for her to realize that both she and the shadow are one and the same. My favorite tracks on the album in order of my most favorite to my regular favorite are Disease, Garden of Eden, Perfect Celebrity, Love Drug, Die With A Smile, Abracadabra, Don't Call Tonight, and The Beast. 3 or 4 songs into the album, I was so sure it was a full-on electronic dark pop music album, which I would be so here for, but then we get some 70s vibes, i.e. funk and disco inspired music like Zombie Boy, Killa, and Vanish Into You. The vocals in the chorus of Vanish Into You is giving Bad Romance. But the beginning of it is reminiscent of the beginning of Highway Unicorn from Born This Way. She's belting out these high notes right off the top. Killa has a bit of rock and roll wrapped up in it. Something about the song reminds me of Cruella, the 2021 version. Perhaps because the soundtracks to the movie was a lot of 70s hits. Cruella in this movie is avant-garde, and so is Gaga. By the way, when is the sequel of that movie coming out? Also, I did a very in-depth review of the movie back when it came out in 2021. Do check it out. It's quite brilliant if I do say so myself, and I do say so. I'll link it below. Zombie Boy is fun and quite surprising for an album called Mayhem. It's very joyful. It's giving roller skating party. Reminds me of when I worked as housekeeping at Disney's Pop Century Resort. The theming of that hotel is decades, or classic years from the 1950s through the 90s. For the first 3 months that I worked there, I was always cleaning rooms in Building 10, which was the training building. So they would train new cast members to clean rooms in that building. It was also in the 70s section of the hotel, and so there would always be 70s music playing outside in the courtyard. Something about the song sounds similar to Bruno Mars's Uptown Funk. I'm not sure if it's the clap or the guitar in the beginning there. We also get some 80s synth pop like Love Drug and How Bad Do You Want Me, which actually sounds like an old Taylor song, Gorgeous from Reputation. Gorgeous. The good girl in your dream. It really is a variety party. It's like Gaga said.
The album is a party. It's like such a fun way to communicate with people, you know? Feel like I love you, listen to this.
If I was picking the songs on the album though, I would just eliminate Blades of Grass. But I get why it's there. Piano is kind of Gaga's thing. She's classically trained. We can't have a Gaga album without a piano ballad. It wouldn't feel complete. And not only that, but Blades of Grass sounds vulnerable and it slows down the chaos of the entire record and leads nicely into Die With A Smile, the last song on the record, as in, now I can die happy. I've lived and tried everything. I have no regrets.
You know, when you press play, after the first few songs, like you think you know what you're getting into, and then you don't. And that to me is also like the kind of party that I want to be at. My favorite parties are when there's like all different kinds of people and we're listening to all different kinds of music and we're connecting through like all of our shared love of like different genres and styles. And it's not just like one thing. That's like the ultimate party to me when we can all be together.
It's been a pleasure listening to the album, watching plenty of Gaga interviews and performances, and then writing my thoughts about the album. If you enjoyed it, you'll love these ones as well. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. About my website. Had to shut it down temporarily for some updates, but it'll be back on shortly. See you next week. Bye.
People tried to put me in a box. What is she? You know, it's dance music. Well, no, but now it's, you know, country, or, you know, now she sings jazz, or now she wants to be an actress, or, you know, just all this, you know, and then art pop. Oh no, now she's making EDM, or, you know, it was always like something. And I'm a woman in music. I'm proudly a woman in music. And, you know, I'll make what I want, because like women deserve the right to like be free in their creations. And, you know, sometimes I ask myself, like, what would you say to another artist if they were to like play you something and be like, what do you think? I'd probably say, what do you think? Like, truly, what is it that you feel? Like, what do you hear? What do you have to say? Because that's at the heart of creation, is the artist's relationship with the work. So I genre hop and I do all that, but it's because like I love music, and I don't want to go out in this life and not say that I've like tried everything, because there's so much music to try.